I'm back. Video number 2. Here it is. Pretty exciting. Okay, so you're done with your caucuses. You did your reflections. You guys are awesome. I'm sure you got it all handled. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, the last thing I want to talk about is full session. So the question is, what is this full session thing? Like, what are we going to be doing in full session? Like, what does it look like? Okay, which I can attest, it's kind of hard to envision how it's all going to look. Just like with committee hearings, it can be kind of hard to envision sometimes with U.S. government, like what these big events are going to be like. So this is my hope. My hope is that after you hear this, you guys have a little bit more of an understanding of full session, but keep in mind that some of it you just kind of have to figure out as we go along, and it's just like with committee hearings. Once we're there, you'll get it. You'll see how it's going to go. Okay, so in front of you, you should all have, you should all have this lovely handout. Okay? So the full session info sheet. The full session info sheet. And on this full session info sheet, you have the calendar. Very exciting. See that? And you're also going to have the PAC map for full session. Okay, I'm going to be referring to this, and I want you guys to refer to it as we go along, okay? So the first thing that I want to talk about is this calendar. So what you guys can see is that you are going to have 2 dates for full session. Kids have asked me, why do we have 2 days for full session? Why don't we do it like we do with committee hearings and just have it all on one day? And part of the reason for that is because full session is different than committee hearings in that there's a lot more time when you're just sitting and listening, and to try to do all of it in one day, I think you guys would find that like really long. So breaking it up is important, but also because I think that you learn a lot after the first full session, and then you bring what you learned in terms of like how you do the job, you bring that into the second day. So day 1 is great. You're kind of figuring things out, getting a lay of the land, like, oh, okay, this is how this works, this is how the speeches work, and so on and so forth. But for day 2, then you can bring all of that understanding back to day 2. Please note, full session is over the course of 2 days, and you're going to have 2 class periods on both of those days. Class period 3 and 4 and class period 5 and 6. You have lunch changes. You also need to come dressed, just like you did for committee hearings. It's a professional environment, so you need to be ready. Full session is held not in the LMC or CLC. Full session is held in the PAC. So we're in the Performing Arts Center the entire time on both of those days, okay? On both of those days, the main work of what most of you will be doing is speeches, okay? The speech assignment will be handed out. I'm going to hand that out to you. Ms. Brown and I will go over it with you on Monday. So the next time we see you, we will know all the bills that are going to be at full session, and you guys will also get your speech assignment on Monday. We'll go over it. You guys will have some class time to work on speeches. You can see that your speeches are due at 11:11 on Wednesday the 30th. So you'll have some time in class on Monday to work on those speeches, and then you'll have to have them posted by Wednesday the 30th at 11:11. So what are these speeches that we're talking about? Okay. Each of you will have an opportunity to choose 2 bills of all the bills, and there will probably be between 12 and 13 bills that go forward to full session. Whichever bills Brittany ultimately chooses, you will choose 1 bill that you're going to write a pro speech on, meaning a speech that you are in favor of that bill, you want to speak on behalf of that bill, and a speech in opposition to that bill, okay? Now, you're going to write that speech, but you may not actually give that speech, because what happens is you're going to post to Moodle on the 30th by 11:11. You're going to post your speeches on Moodle. This is where the work of the majority and minority leaders comes in. And also, in this case, the majority and minority leaders are also choosing what are called head whips. And head whips are basically like the individuals who are the right-hand man or woman to the majority leader. And I believe Dean Zillner of our very own Sixth Block might be a head whip for the minority party. The majority and minority chair, along with their head whips, are actually not writing speeches. Their job instead will be, drumroll, to read every single one of the speeches that you guys post for your caucus to the Moodle. Which means, if you're Nick Ashley, you and your head whip have to read every single speech that's posted. And if you are Gray Woodward and Dean Zillner, you guys have to read every single speech posted for the Republican bills. That is pretty intense, right? That's a lot of reading. So they actually will have some modified assignments over the next couple of weeks. But what they do is they get all those, and that's why it's super important that you guys get your work posted, because they have to do all this work. So between this day all the way through this weekend, on the 5th, they will actually come to school having posted who is speaking on which bills. They will choose some of you to only deliver 30 seconds of your 3-minute speech. So you'll write a 3-minute speech, but Woodward and Dean might say, okay, we only want you to deliver this 30 seconds of your speech. And they'll tell you exactly which 30 seconds to use, or a minute, or whatever it is. And the same thing for the Democrats. Nick will actually choose the portions of your speech that he wants you to read at full session. So what that means is some of you will get chosen to speak and some of you will not. The better the speech you write, the more likely you are to be chosen. And some of you, that means, like, what if I don't want to speak? Like, what if I just, like, don't want to speak at all? It doesn't matter. If you get chosen to speak, unless, and I've been telling kids this the last couple days, unless you have a medical reason why you cannot speak at full session, I will help you, I will support you, we will all support you, but you will speak at full session. Now, this doesn't mean you should write a bad speech if you're trying to get out of speaking, but it means, because, you know, nobody wants to, like, get a bad grade, because you will be graded on the speeches, but just keep that in mind. And also, speaking at full session is not nearly as scary as it seems, and it's super awesome. And wait till you get there, because it's so exciting. And full session day, when people are delivering their speeches, it's really exciting, okay? So that's the speech assignment. That's what's coming up. Now let's talk about what's going to happen on that full session day, because I think that if you guys get a look at this map, what you'll see is, so you guys will all come in and you will be sitting according to your caucuses. You'll be sitting in Republican and Democratic caucuses. And in fact, you'll be sitting according to your committee. So if you're a Democrat for Committee A, you're going to be sitting in this row, Committee B, and so on. And the same thing mirrors on the Republican side. So whichever committee, Zocker, whichever committee he was the chair of, he becomes what's called the assistant whip. Remember how I said Dean is a head whip? Jack is going to become what's called an assistant whip, and he is going to basically run the Republicans for his committee, and he's going to run them in whichever row, like, is associated with actually his committee letter, which we'll get to when we get there. So you guys all sit in your rows, and you are, like, sitting according to caucus. Okay, in the hall, there are five important microphones. There's a microphone right up at the front on a little platform. There is a microphone here, here, here in the aisle, and here in the aisle. Okay. So the microphones are set up because you guys have different places that you're going to actually be speaking. When the bills are announced, so up on the stage will be the Speaker of the House, okay? That speaker, your speaker, Brittany, will bang the gavel. She'll gavel us into session. She'll announce the bill. The first thing that happens is the opening speech. For each bill that moves forward, the bill group has to identify a person who will give an opening speech, and then a different person who will deliver a closing speech. Those speeches can be very similar to the speeches that you gave at committee hearings. You can tweak them, you can adjust them. They don't have to be super long, but the opening speech will be delivered from this platform, from this podium in the front of the full session, and it will introduce your bill and encourage people to vote for it. After that speech is given, then any individuals who were chosen to speak by the majority or minority chair will line up at these microphones. They'll line up at these microphones and they will one by one deliver their speech. So down here, the majority and minority chairs will be standing at the podium saying, I yield 30 seconds to, Representative Zocker. I yield 30 seconds to Representative Gung. I yield 15 seconds to Representative Rittenhour. Like whoever they're going to decide that they are giving time to. And you'll know this ahead of time because you'll be told, remember, you'll be told on the 5th if you're speaking or not. They are yielding you time to speak. So one after another, people go back and forth and speak. Now, down here on the floor, people are going to line up. During these speeches, people are going to line up for what are called impromptu speeches. So let's say that Representative Rittenhour gets up and he makes a speech that says, I happen to know that 85% of all immigrants are convicted criminals. Okay, if you hear him say that, and you know that that's not true, you can run down to this microphone and talk to the majority or minority chair, whichever side you're speaking on behalf of. And they will ask you, what do you want to say? Like they'll whisper to you, what do you want to say? What's on your mind? And if they decide that you should give an impromptu speech, you will line up and they'll yield maybe 15 seconds to you, maybe 20 seconds to you. Remember, they have a limited amount of total time for the debate. That's all decided by the Speaker of the House. She can extend time if she thinks that there are lots of debates that still have yet to happen, but she also can cut you off, okay, when your time is expired. Once all of the impromptu speeches are given and the time is up, then the person who's giving the closing, they get the last word. Once the closing speech is given, then assistant whips, the people who are running their committee rows, will move straight to the vote. They will immediately go to the people in their row and they will say, they'll quietly collect your vote. It's not a public, like you have to stand up and say, I vote yay or I vote nay. But like Zocker, for example, because he is going to be an assistant whip and in charge of his committee on the Republican side, he will say to you, what's your vote? What's your vote? What's your vote? He writes them all down. He runs them to the stage. And then he books them with the clerk. Then he immediately will go back up to the microphone. He'll get in line, alphabetical order, A, B, C, D, and then one by one, each assistant whip reads off the votes. And the votes then show up on the screen. And it's kind of tense because as the votes are read off, you can see who is winning, who's losing, and it's kind of fun. Once all the votes are read, the gavel bangs. Everything is over. That bill is done. It either passes or fails. Then we immediately move on to the next bill. That's how the whole day will run at full session. So it can be a really exciting day. And the better your speeches, you guys, the more prepared you are, the more ready to debate, the more ready to present your perspectives, the more fun it's going to be. It's going to be so fun. Again, it's 6th block. You guys are 6th block, so you're so fantastic. I just have no doubt you're going to do an amazing job. But if you have questions about what's going on from this point on, make sure you talk to me. You can come and ask me questions. I'll be back in school on Friday. But, just be prepared to write really good speeches and to now move forward, giving all of the energy that you had for your bills to whichever bills you're going to write speeches on behalf of. And just kind of keep all these things, these timelines in mind. So, okay, any questions? Just kidding, because I can't answer questions because I'm not there right now. Good one, Miss Anderson. Joker. Okay. All right. Okay, so I guess if there's any time left in class, you guys can get back together with your caucuses and discuss more. You can ask some question and answers. Kira might be able to answer some questions for you based on what she knows about the sessions from Rules Committee. But Thank you. You guys are awesome. I'm sad I can't be with you because I'm always bummed when I miss 6 block, and I feel like I've missed it a lot the last couple weeks. But okay, we'll see you on Monday, I guess. And okay, sayonara. Have a good weekend.